What's going on, guys? It's Jimmy here. Welcome to our daily show where we discuss the fourth stimulus package update, stimulus check update, daily news, everything going on here in our country, in Washington, D.C., with the economy, money, investing, the stock market, and everything you need to know about on a daily basis. If you're new to our YouTube channel, make sure to subscribe down below. It's completely free to do so. Remember that new videos come out here on our YouTube channel at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Every single day, I will keep you up to date with everything going on here in our country. And if you find these videos helpful, don't forget to smash the like button for us down below. It really helps out our channel. There's a lot going on here. We have potential mandates to fly here in the US. I'm going to give you the latest on that. And we're going to hear directly from a senator regarding the bill passing, as well as the next stimulus package, the Build Back Better package, or it could be a new stimulus package for the virus, an emergency virus relief package. Also, Democrats are considering presidential executive orders. There's multiple different paths forward going forward. We're going to talk about the latest on that. So we actually have an interview from a senator here today regarding all of this and how they're going to try to get multiple different either packages passed or pieces of it passed, executive orders passed. There's a lot of different paths forward that they're considering. And honestly, they might have kind of different pieces and parts forward. I mean, honestly, it might not just be one thing forward. It might not just be like one big boom, one big bill forward. It might be a couple different pieces and paths forward, honestly, going forward here. So we're going to give you the latest. So let's jump right in. Dr. Anthony Fauci says today on domestic air travel here in the United States, anything to get people more vaccinated, he says, quote, would be welcome. Let me know your thoughts on this. Here's what he has to say. Dr. Anthony Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, said today, quote, anything that could get people more vaccinated would be welcome when he was asked about what he thinks about the notion of domestic air travel vaccine mandates. Yeah, this has been an idea that has been kicked around here recently. He said in an appearance on ABC's News This Week, and when he asked if he agreed with President Biden, who said in a recent interview that his team said vaccine mandates for domestic air travel isn't necessary at this time. But apparently they're considering and kicking around the idea and at least talking about it. Fauci's told Carl, quote, well, it depends on what you want to use it for. I mean, vaccine requirements for people coming in from other countries is to prevent newly infected people from getting into the country. Quote, a vaccine requirement for a person getting on the plane is just another level of getting people to have a mechanism that would spur them to get vaccinated. Namely, you can't get on a plane unless you're vaccinated, which is just another one of the ways of getting requirements, whatever that might be. He also continued to reiterate that wearing masks on plane is still a good idea, despite airline CEOs saying that they weren't always necessary due to sufficient air filtration systems inside of aircraft. Dr. Fauci said, quote, I think the idea of taking masks off, in my mind, is really not something we should even be considering. And that's what we meant by it depends on what the goal of getting people vaccinated before they get on a domestic flight. This comes as the Biden administration and the U.S. government has just announced that they are removing the travel restrictions from 8 countries from Africa. So, and these are for non-U.S. citizens. So they can now fly over. South Africa has been a hotspot for the new Omicron variant. Yeah, so that travel restriction will be removed for non-U.S. citizens on December 31st for the new year, basically. Yeah, so let me know your thoughts. This is something they are considering. Do you think there should be vaccine requirements to get on a plane here in the U.S.? This is something that could happen in the future. It has not happened yet. Do you think it should be a requirement? Yeah, this is obviously very controversial. Um, Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Keep it clean though, because we're a family-friendly show here. So let me know your thoughts in the comments. Also, YouTube will block out vulgar comments and spam filters and stuff like that. So keep that in mind. Okay, next up, we're going to go to Democratic Senator Ben Cardin from Maryland, who went on Fox News today to discuss the Build Back Better package and how they're going to move forward, if they're going to be passing the Build Back Better package or possibly this new type of stimulus package. Remember that House Representative Jamal Bowman is calling on Congress to pass more COVID stimulus relief now that the Omicron variant is just rapidly spreading here in the US. We actually have some Republicans from the Senate that have actually spoke up and said that, as you can see from this headline here, just from a few days before Christmas, that Republicans are open to considering funding for relief from the virus, stimulus type relief as well. What that will mean, what that will consist of, well, we'll have to see here. But honestly, that's how stimulus package 1 and stimulus package 2 were passed. So with Republican and Democratic support. So there's a lot of avenues forward, as well as executive orders that Democrats are calling for as well. So we'll have to see. Here is Democratic Senator Ben Cardin from Maryland. He's on Fox News, which is a Republican news station. So just keep that in mind. And here we go. He's going to talk about the stimulus package going forward.
Majority Leader Chuck Schumer sent out a Dear Colleague letter this week in which he said there will be a vote on Build Back Better. And President Biden said he thinks there's still a possibility of getting the bill done. Senator, what's the path forward to actually getting the legislation passed as it is now when the math clearly isn't there?
Well, Mike, not only did the majority leader send a letter out, we also had a caucus this past week, last week, and there's unanimity in our caucus that we want to get a bill to the president, and we are working to see what that bill will contain. President Biden's directly involved in these negotiations. We need to deal with the affordability of child care because it affects our workforce and having workers available for our economy. We got to deal with the cost of higher education. We know working families have tax issues. We've got to extend certain tax provisions to help working families and families with children. There are things that need to get done that shouldn't be partisan. We should be able to get these issues worked out. We are prepared to move. We just need to make sure we have unanimity in our caucus, and that's what we're working on. And we will start on that next week when we return.
To your point, are Democrats open to scaling it back even more or passing various pieces as standalones, maybe attracting Senator Manchin or even some GOP on some of these issues?
Well, that's a strategy decision that's being negotiated. We are open to a way to reach the finish line. We want to make it as comprehensive as possible because the needs are just there. We recognize that families need help on affordability, and that's what this is about, making our economy affordable for families, and it will be fully paid for. That is very clear. We understand the risks of inflation, and we are committed to making sure that we really offset all expenses. So I think with those parameters, we want to see it as comprehensive as possible, but we need to make sure that we have the votes to pass it. So that means it'll be different than some of us would like to see.
Now, the whole bill being paid for, well, first of all, the bill is going to have to change to get Joe Manchin's vote. Joe Manchin has recently said he's been in conversation with President Biden. Biden thinks they're going to get a deal done. What that is going to consist of, there's multiple paths forward, whether it consists of some executive orders, whether it consists of just getting Joe Manchin's vote and just changing things around, whether it consists of changing the bill to get Joe Manchin on board. There's multiple paths forward, okay? Whether it consists of maybe going with a stimulus emergency relief package with stimulus checks for adults, or bipartisan bills with Republicans on board, multiple different routes. Republicans have said they're on board with potentially voting for the child tax credits with changes. Like I said, multiple different paths forward here. I'll keep you up to date here. But whether the bill is paid for or not, there's a big difference in opinion there. Democrats say it's fully paid for. Republicans say it's not fully paid for. Republicans are running with the idea that, for example, extending the child tax credits, this bill calls to extend it for 1 year. Some Republicans are saying, no, no, no. What if they get extended for 10 years? Even though, just as this one example, the bill is only passing it for 1 year. If it got extended for 10 years, which it's not, it's getting paid for 1 year. How much would it cost then? And that's like saying, for example, the defense of our country, when they passed the $770 billion for the defense of our country, they passed that for 1 year. They didn't pass it for 10 years. So they don't extrapolate that out for 10 years and say, how much would it cost for 10 years? But nonetheless, the Republicans are kind of running with that idea to kind of sway Joe Manchin to not vote for that. And Joe Manchin has kind of taken a hold of that idea a little bit. Okay, so there's kind of a little bit of a tug of war back there going with that idea. So, but nonetheless, many of the programs in this package, they're not for 10 years. Okay, the thing is that when the next midterm elections come up in November, Republicans could have control of the House or the Senate or both. And if the Republicans control at least one, then Republicans can choose not to vote on anything, the child tax credits, stimulus checks, or vote yes on anything. So if Republicans are in control of anything, well, it's not just the Democrats passing any of these agendas, right? So then they would get to choose whether or not they pass it, because the child tax credits, as the example here that we're using, would only be passed for 1 year. Well, the Republicans would be in charge of, say, the House or the Senate or something like that. So that's why you can't really say, oh, well, let's say if it gets passed for 10 years when the bill only calls to pass it for 1 year, because there's going to be almost certainly a change in Congress of who controls what. I mean, remember, but just back in 2017 and 2018, the Republicans control both the House, the Senate, and the presidency. The Republicans controlled all three. And now the Democrats control all three. So that's how quickly things can change in Congress.
Does scaling back the bill to win over moderates risk losing progressives in both the Senate and the House?
Well, we got to find that sweet spot. And I think as long as everyone's at the table as we're negotiating, I know President Biden has always included all parts of our caucus in these discussions. I think we can reach that sweet spot. Look, a lot of us are going to be disappointed, but we're not going to let perfection be the enemy of getting something done. So we need to get something done. I think we'll be pragmatic about it, but we want to make sure it deals with the issues that we're facing in our communities.
President Biden said in an interview with ABC News this week, quote, "The only thing standing between getting voting rights legislation passed and not getting passed is the filibuster. I support making an exception on voting rights of the filibuster." Majority Leader Chuck Schumer said the Senate would, quote, "consider changes to any rules which prevent us from debating and reaching final conclusion on important legislation." Senator, you've said in the past you'd be open to eliminating that, but because the votes to do that do not exist, you'd like to see bipartisan buy-in to reforming the rules. What's your position now?
Well, Mike, I've been in the Senate for 15 years, and what I would like to see us is return to how the Senate was operating when I first came to the United States Senate, and that is allow issues to come to the floor of the Senate so we can debate. We're supposed to be the greatest debating society institution in the world. Mm-hmm. We need to be able to debate issues, but we also need to make sure that the minority have an opportunity to offer amendments and get votes on their amendments. And at the end of the day, we should be voting up or down on legislation. That's what we need to do, is to reform the Senate rules so that it acts in its traditional historic sense. We're not doing that today. And I do hope we would have Republicans who would join us in this effort so that the Senate can restore the way that it should be considering legislation.
And of course, some folks favor changing the rules when they're in the majority, and then when they get to be in the minority, they don't care for it so much, right?
Well, Mike, I've been working both in the majority and minority with senators from both sides. We recognize that the Senate is broken as far as the way it operates, and we have to fix that. And yes, voting rights is a good example. There's no reason why we shouldn't be debating this issue on the floor of the United States Senate. It's a timely issue, and it needs the debate in the United States Senate. We should be voting on amendments, and we should allow the majority to rule on these votes on amendments. Let's have a real debate and let the Senate carry out his historic role. So I felt this way when we were in the minority, when I couldn't offer amendments. I feel this way in the majority when we can't get votes up or down. Let's listen to each other. Let's fix the Senate, and let's take up issues such as voting rights.
And here's an article back, kind of ties into what they were saying back from 2018, June of 2018. Trump to the Republicans, when Trump was president and Republicans were in charge of the Senate, dumped the filibuster before Schumer does, before Democrats potentially take over, which they eventually did. And now Democrats are trying to get rid of the filibuster. Trump wanted to get rid of the filibuster back when they were in control of everything, and they passed the 2017 Trump tax cuts with the reconciliation process. But that darn filibuster was in the way for the majority of bills. And both Republicans and Democrats have wanted to get rid of the filibuster when they're in the majority, because the filibuster is a big hurdle to passing the majority of bills. And I think that eventually they're going to keep slowly getting rid of the filibuster, whether it's Democrats or Republicans. They're going to keep chipping away at it because it is a big hurdle to blocking passing bills in the Senate.
In that letter to colleagues this week, Senator Schumer seemingly took a shot at Senator Manchin, stating that every senator would have the, quote, opportunity to make their position known on the Senate floor, not just on television. Here's Manchin from an interview he did this week.
I'm from West Virginia. I'm not from where they're from, and they can just beat the living crap out of people and think they'll be submissive.
Senator Cardin, Senator Manchin is an elected official from the state of West Virginia, one of the reddest states in recent years. He's been in the U.S. Senate since 2010, and prior to that served as governor. Is it possible he has a point that some of the policies in Build Back Better just don't rate with his state?
And he certainly has expressed himself, and he's asking for a vote in the United States Senate. He's asking for us to take the issue up and vote on it. So, look, we all have our own views. We have our constituents. At the end of the day, I think Senator Manchin understands the importance of getting legislation to the president to deal with many of the issues that are in Build Back Better. He doesn't agree with all of them. So let's sit down and find that area where we all can come together for the sake of our country and all of our states, including West Virginia and Maryland. The citizens will benefit from that.
So Democrats are going to figure out ways forward here to pass pieces and parts of stimulus, whether it be the new stimulus package called for by Representative Jamal Bowman, which is a more traditional type COVID stimulus relief package, whether it's what Pramila Jayapal is calling for through presidential executive action, executive order, which they did just pass a presidential order to pause student loan payments for over 40 million people, which actually helps with billions and billions of dollars of relief when you add it up all together, and pauses all the payments for 40 million people, pauses all the interest for 40 some million people, pauses all the garnishment for 40 some million people. And for a lot of people, those payments are hundreds and hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars for some people per month and interest. And they're going to now pause that until May 1st. So like 5 more months. So that is another type of stimulus program relief that they just extended. And we'll have to see what they're doing for. We have multiple different groups and millions of people calling for stimulus checks for adults and to pass or extend the child tax credits, which have now, the monthly payments have now stopped on December 15th. So that's for about 60 some million children are no longer going to get monthly payments because the last monthly payment went out on December 15th. So there's a lot of different moving pieces and parts in play here. And as we go into the new year with this new virus kind of at its worst, multiple different states setting all-time records, the highest they've ever been. We think about we're going into 2022, and yet We're supposed to be eradicating the virus, and yet it's at its worst. New York had its 2 different days here, set its all-time record. Washington, D.C. set its all-time record. Countries around the world are setting their all-time record as well. It's not just the U.S. And when we think about virus relief, COVID pandemic relief packages, I mean, what better time, because our economy is going to start falling. They can't even man the planes. They can't even staff planes. Hundreds and hundreds of planes, thousands of people couldn't make it to their destination for Christmas. Probably are still stranded today because they didn't even have enough people to man the planes. In today's episode, if you can't make this stuff up, it's crazy. That's just one example of what's going on with our economy today. So, yeah, they're going to definitely need to do something here. And I'll keep you up to date here with what's going on here in our country, in Washington, D.C., and everything you need to know about. So make sure to subscribe down below if you haven't yet. New videos come out here every day at 10 a.m., 3 p.m., and 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. You can click here to watch my newest video next. Thanks for watching, guys, and I will see you in the next video.